George MacDonald was born in 1824 in Huntly in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. Huntly is a small town still to this day, but it was even smaller back in its original history. It came about as a settlement in the Neolithic period, about 10,000 BC. And they've found evidence of that early settlement. But fast forwarding to the 1824 era and through the 1800s, the population rose to about 3,000 and hit about 4,000 in the early 1900s, and it remains about that same today. So when George MacDonald was there, his father was a farmer, and the community was agrarian for the most part. His mother had an interesting background, but both his father and mother were both very avid readers. And in fact, his mother had academics, and both uncles and other relatives, scholars, Shakespearean scholars, some that were Celtic mythology scholars. And so he grew up in this very literate environment, and people in his family were reading, Isaac Newton, and they were reading Robert Burns, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and others. These are the kind of books that he had laying around at his house, in addition to, I'm sure, Celtic mythology books and just all kinds of other books. And so his early life was, I'm sure, inundated with all of these scholarly works. So when George MacDonald graduated, he came out of college. He became it was King's College in Aberdeen. He became a minister, and that only lasted about 3 years, and he just wasn't making it. The money wasn't there for him, unfortunately. So he started a writing career, and among his first books were the one I'm going to just do a short review on here, Phantastes. But he also wrote several other fantasy books. Phantastes is a fantasy book. He wrote Princess and the Goblin, which is a children's tale, At the Back of the North Wind, and many others. The unique thing about him is that many of the very popular fantasy authors that people know, especially C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, were heavily influenced by George MacDonald. After reading Phantastes, I can see why, because the book was exceedingly familiar to me. Just reading through it was my first ever George MacDonald book, but reading through it, I saw so many things that reminded me of things I'd seen, just story elements, settings that I'd seen in Lewis and or Tolkien, particularly in Lewis's Narnia books and in Lord of the Rings. So, like I said, very familiar. All right, so Phantastes. It starts out with a wooden desk and a teenager, and he discovers in the wooden desk a gateway to the realm of fairy. And he goes there and has adventures. During his adventures, he meets a alabaster white woman of fairy who's the most beautiful creature he's ever seen. And he actually finds her, and she's in kind of a sleep, an eternal sleep, encased in marble. And he sings to her form, and she awakes. And then he falls asleep, and she wanders off. And the whole rest of the time, he's hoping to find her again. And he does indeed find her. But most of the book, he's seeking this woman and trying to find her again, because he's just infatuated, all right? And there's something else about her, too. Just something he's never seen before. So a kind of pureness. And so that's most of the book is him seeking her, and he does find her, but she's never attainable to him. So that's kind of an interesting conceit to keep going through a book. This sort of unattainable goal, if you would. And along the way, he ends up meeting a Knight of the Round Table. I won't spoil it. And he has adventures with sorcery and living trees and goblins and all manner of different creatures. He ends up finding a library that's filled with books that have incredible stories in them. And actually, one whole chapter is him reading out of library books that he finds. And it threw me off a little bit because it was kind of a story within a story. And so, anyway, at the end, in the climactic scene, he, through this journey he's had in the realm of fairy, he learns that things aren't always what they immediately seem on the surface, and sometimes you have to be wary of your environment. And he ends up noticing something that nobody else around him notices it, and he basically sacrifices his own life to save everybody in the realm from a horrible, horrible fate. And then he ends up going back to our world, but he does die in fairy. And so the book is a little bit of a commentary on the human condition, how we ourselves can get taken by our goals, our immediate goals, or our infatuations, and can wander through life and possibly miss the important things that might come our way. And there's a really interesting juxtaposition between somebody who should know better and our hero of the story. And our hero is the only one that sees the truth of what's going on, what's really going on. And he goes in there and to just determine to save everyone from this great evil that he perceives. So it's a story about self-sacrifice. It's a story about just staying grounded and really introspection, I'd say, and looking inside oneself and thinking about others besides yourself, not just focusing on your own needs, on your own desires, your own wants, but seeing the greater good, and then not only that, but acting on it, which was a large part of George MacDonald's philosophy, really. When you look at one of the things he said, one of his quotes, "A man's real belief is that which he lives by. What a man believes is the thing he does, not the thing he thinks." So, important words for us to remember, I think, especially in this time of great turmoil. Right, Scott the Night Train Piper here from the mountains of Southern California. I hope you enjoyed that. If you stuck through the whole thing, good job. If you didn't, I don't blame you. It was long. A little experimental thing on my part. Tonight I'm smoking Epiphany, one of my favorite blends. It's a great blend, great summer blend, and I'm smoking it in my Botschokan Cocard pipe. All right, this has been long enough already. So with that, I'm going to leave you with happy smokes, and I hope you have a really happy week. And read a book. Any book will do. But I'd recommend something by George MacDonald as an option. I'll talk to you all later.